Good morning, dear children. How are you? I hope you all are safe and fine. Alright? So today what we are going to learn, we are going to deal with one of the wonderful concepts, right? What we are going to learn? We are going to learn about the beautiful concept that will help you to understand each and everything properly, right? About the chapter that is your physical education and sports for differently abled children. What it is students? So what we are going to learn today, we had already studied three things. That is, what is disability, what are the types of disability, and what is disorder. Right? So here we have done the two of the disability. Now we are going to learn about the third disability, and the name of the disability is cognitive disability. See, this cognitive disability is also called learning disability. Which disability, dear students? It is also called learning disability. This disability is very important as far as concerned for a student. Got it? So as and when we learn about the students or the children will generally be focused and generally ask. And you might have heard that many of your friends say generally that, sir, I am not able to learn properly. Many of the friends of yours have a problem in learning and understanding things. So why does this kind of problems occur? What is the reason behind it? Why the students are always strive to pushing out from the things. They generally push out the things we don't know. We don't know what to do, and they are not generally their learning power, their memory resulting is too low. So why this kind of things happen? Here we'll know. So here the same concept we are going to learn, that what is the problem with the students or people having this kind of cognitive or learning disability. It's a very important question as we talk about the purpose, right? So see here it affects the person's thought process, right? What it do? It affects the person's thought process, personality and memory resulting. So whenever we talk about this learning kind of disability, that is the cognitive disability, it affects the person's thought process. Which thing it affects? It affects the thought process of the person. See, when we talk about the thought process, a lot of things generated, right? So when I'm talking about the thought process, it means what is the behavior of an individual? What is the thought process of the particular individual? It means which kind of thoughts are there in his or her mind. Are that person living in a sense of reality, or he is not living in reality? He or she is able to face reality of the life, or he or she is living in a sophisticated, unreal world. So let's come and understand the concept of cognitive or learning disability. It affects the person's thought process, personality and memory resulting. For example, for an injury of brain. So as and when there is any injury of brain, the person will affect drastically. Whenever there is a problem to an individual during the brain injury, then definitely there will be a lot of problems, right? See, the brain, which is consists of ANS, CNS, that is central nervous system, okay, peripheral nervous system, lobes. So the memory resulting, the personality type, and lot of things are based there only, right? So here when we start this, we must have understood, and you must have understood also, that about what I am talking. I am basically concerned about the persons who have a difficulty in thought process, the person who have a problem in personality traits, right? So we have two kinds of personality, as you are aware, that is introvert personality and extrovert personality, right? And next is ambivert. Extrovert personality, those individuals who are extroversion, they are free to ask, they are free to, they are very friendly. Next is introvert. So when I am talking about introvert, they have their own world. They live in their own world and they generally do not interact much. When I'm talking about ambivert, the third kind of people who are, are adjustable in every aspect or, any situation. Got it? So if the thought process is disturbed, if the thought process is affected, if the personality trait is affected, or it's a problem in memory resulting, which resulting memory resulting. It means to learn things, it means to take things in mind, or it's a mental kind of confusion. See why I'm saying it's a mental kind of confusion, because an individual is confused what to do, how to do, and why to do, and what the exact problem is, right? So for example, from an injury of brain. So if any individual who is facing some brain injury, right, traumatic injury, right, so it may be due to genetic, it may be a genetical problem, it means it may be related with the problems of genes, chromosomes, right. Next thing is, if I am talking about brain injury, see, as in computer CPU is the brain, we have our brain, right, and we must understand what is the capacity of our brain, and what are the illness and what are the sickness, or what I say, what are the problems we'll have to face if there is any problem with the brain, if there is any injury of the brain. So with this, I would like to give some social skill. My first social skill here is to be always wear that helmet wherever you drive. So that, see, this is the delicate part, this brain, okay. So if there is any major or minor injury, there will be a lot of problems. So you must have to wear this helmet. Now let's go and understand the next line or the next concept, that is cognitive disability are kind of impairment. So we are aware that disability or any kind of disability is definitely a kind of impairment. What it is? It is the kind of impairment, because the definition of disability only says disabilities are the kind of impairment. They may be cognitive, they may be developmental, they may be intellectual, or there may be some combination of this. Right? So cognitive disability are the kind of impairment in which a person or people who are suffering from dyslexia or various kind of learning difficulties like speech disorder. So people to whom you will consider here, see, when the person who is having the problem in thinking, the problem is speech, the person who having some problem, that is impairment, is suffering from dyslexia. So if anyone is suffering from dyslexia may lead to the cognitive disability, right? So if I'm talking about cognitive disability, so here it is clear with everyone that the cognitive disability is a kind of impairment in which the memory resulting, in which the thought process and the personality of an individual is affected, right? And here in the second line we have understood that the cognitive disabilities are the kind of impairments in which person or people who is suffering from dyslexia or various kinds of learning disability. So here we actually take the kind of disability is the speech disorder. So if you have, or if someone having a speech disorder, they may be facing some cognitive kind of disability. See, when I am talking about cognitive, that is the problem affecting your learning, your memory resulting, your thought process. Got it? Let us come and we'll do the next thing, a psychiatric disability or a mental illness. See, when I am talking about psychiatric disorder or psychiatric disability or psychiatric impairment, psychiatric word means it is related to the psychology. It is related to the person who are treating the mental illness. The psychiatric disabilities or mental illness. So psychiatric disorder is also called disability, is also called mental illness, and can be developed at any age. So it is not compulsory that it will be in a particular age, but yes, the psychiatric disabilities, this kind of impairments can occur in any of the age, and which may lead some serious issues. What it is, students? See, it's generally, it's not often the community and people attitude may be based on prejudices and myth. See, sometimes when we talk about cognitive disability, that is the ability, this disability, people have a lot of myth about it. We must have to understand what is the basic concept and what are the problems one have to face, and what are the corrective measures to avoid this cognitive disability, that is the learning disability, right? So this a lot of problems like acetylphenoric and potential learning, right? So when I'm talking about acetylphenoric, so it's related with the mood swing, okay? Sometimes more violent behavior, sometimes happy behavior, right? Cheerful. And when we talk about potential violent, it means प्रदर्शन और के what should I say in Hindi perfect word, अपनी शक्ति का प्रदर्शन करना, you know, to exhibit the problem, to exhibit the your potential, that I am the dangerous one, I am the bodybuilder and I'll build you, I will beat you. This kind of problem, this kind of potential violence is generally when there are people who are facing this kind of cognitive problem. So there are a lot of myths about it. This is a cognitive disability. So one should be focused while understanding this, and one should give more time to the patient who are suffering from cognitive disability. Let's come. And this mental illness can be induced stress related to the condition or a major depression. Right? Let's say the mental illness stress. Now what is this stress, guys? See, when we are talking about stress, so stress is something which is not in your comfort zone. Stress is something when you have a pressure or build a work. Stress is something when you are feeling that you are not able to do. Stress is something which gives you fear that what will happen if I will not do that, a particular task. Stress is something when you are not able to complete a task at a particular time, and it creates a fear. So what we need to understand here is, we need to keep in our mind that stress is nothing but the disorganization of our abilities. Why does stress happen? See, when you are not well planned, well versed with your activities, when you don't know your potential, so see, there will be stress. So let us take an example. If I am assigning you some homework and I want you by tomorrow, and it is not at all possible to submit a task which is I have assigned you, is not possible to submit by tomorrow. So now it's your duty, and it will create a sense of fear, a sense of tension, a sense of anxiety and stress in your mind, that how I will do this work in such a short period of time. So it will create a stress. It will create a tension. It will create, some your heartbeat, and everything will definitely what I say, the feeling, the emotional imbalance will happen. So if you have a power of persistence, if you are possessing a good, well-planned lifestyle, so here we understand that our life should be organized. Our life should be organized, well-planned. Right, dear students? So if you organize, if you well plan, so then there will not be any kind of problem. Be time punctual. See, if I talk about the real life example, if you plan your lifestyle, see, generally people saying that all the problems are in my life only, or God, what you have done. So they are the fools of the foolish, right? Okay, so I don't want to tell that, but see, why I am telling this? Because the change here we need to understand in our daily life, if we manage our things, like when to study, when to play, when to eat, when to entertainment. So if we make a balanced combination, a perfect lifestyle, then there will not be, I don't think so there will be any problem, right? In the same way, if the hormonal secretions are imbalanced, if the physical fitness is imbalanced, if the emotional and social interactive intelligence is imbalanced, definitely there will be a problem, right? So what one need to understand, this disability lead to stress. So if you organize well, if you have it, so one should go for meditation to avoid this stress. Okay? Now what is the major depression? See, what is depression? Depression is not caused by other person in our life. It is we that create the kind of depression in our life. See, it's our life, and is it possible that another people come in our life and create a disturbance, create a depression? Why? See, when I listen depression word, so kind of sensation come in our mind that someone is disturbed by other. Got it? But see, when we are talking about depression, so depression is not like that. See, it's a kind of emotional imbalance. As physical education having four basic objectives: physical development, social development, mental development, and the last one is emotional development. When I listen this word depression, the point comes, our emotions are imbalanced, that's why we are in this, depression. Is it true? Yes, exactly. So why you imbalance your emotion for others? Right? Why people started to feel that they are lost in this world and they should die, they should suicide, which is totally a bad kind of thinking process in the mind. So depression is not at all like that. Okay? So one can overcome the depression if we go for meditation, if we perform yoga. अगर आपके जीवन में कोई नहीं है, ईश्वर आपके साथ है. If you don't believe on God, a power, the supreme power is with you. Why you are, making friends? Let make Krishna your friend. Let make Radha your friend. Let make the Almighty God your friend. Things will be super. Why you expect? The word expectation from other will lead you into the tension, depression, etc. Why you expect things from others? Why you just be a good giver? No? Don't expect कि मुझे क्या मिलेगा अगर मैं ऐसा करूँगा. When this thought process comes, definitely there will be a lot of problems. There is a depression and everything. And why I am more concerning about this topic today, because this all cognitive disability is just because of the trends in the modern society. Got it? So what I am saying here, see, if you feeling a kind of problem, if you change the perspectives of your life, see why we always compare things one another. When you stop comparing, when you stop judging people, when you stop expectations, lot of expectations than rather than required, then definitely there will be a lot of problems, right? So we must be more concerning. So what I was telling you about mental illness can be induced stress, related condition, major depression, bipolar disorder. Now this is the important board exam question in the MCQs. Bipolar disorder is a manic depression illness, right? It is a manic depression illness. Anxiety, schizophrenia. Depression is the most common that is the psychological mental disorder. See, when I am talking about psychosis, right? It means which is related to the mind. Okay. So psychosis being a disorder which loss comes content from the reality. It is also a very important question in the MCQ form is generally asked. We'll give you some options. Psychosis. It means the person started living in an unreal, sophisticated world, right? So if someone who is facing the problem of psychosis, there is being a kind of disorder that the loss of contact from reality. A person don't want to live in reality, don't want to understand what is the reality of life. They all are living in a sophisticated world. They all, the people who are here is, in this cognitive disability, they want to live in the unreal world, right? So that's a problem with them. Now what the causes of this? The causes of this is genetic cause, problem during pregnancy, problem during childhood. So these are some problems which lead definitely a drastic change in the life of a person, because it's not only affect their thought process, but it also a kind of mental stress given to them. Got it, dear students? Now I'm going to read something and I want you to put your 100% concentration here. Okay, so listen me first. Cognitive disability affects the person's thought process. personality and memory resulting too. So let us take an example. For an injury of brain, cognitive disability is a kind of impairment present in people from injury or suffering from dyslexia, and various kind of learning disabilities includes speech disorder also. A psychiatric disability is a mental kind of illness, can develop in any age and often not apparent to other peoples. As I earlier told you that psychiatric disabilities, often misunderstood. People's, generally have a lot of myths on it. So schizophrenia, potential violent, the mental illness can include stress related conditions, major depression, bipolar disorder that I told you, manic depressive illness, right? So anxiety, schizophrenia, depression is the most important non-psychotic mental illness. Now what is this psychosis? So psychosis is being a disorder when a person have lost his or her contact from the reality, from the real world, right? So now there are a lot of things to understand in cognitive disability, and these are. So now what we are going to learn is, we are going to learn the types of cognitive disabilities. What are we going to learn? We are going to learn the types of cognitive or learning disability, right? Types. Let us come and learn the types of cognitive or learning disability. Right, dear students? So first is psychological disorder. See, when we talk about psychological or psychiatric problems, there are a lot of branch, there are a lot of sub-problems, there is a lot of subcategories, right? So whenever there is a problem related to psychology, that's a kind of mental illness. People generally see what happens when you see. Have you ever seen a crazy man or a crazy woman? You must have noticed that they just fail to understand their potential, their status, their originality, their potential, right? So here is when we talk about psychological disorder. So here we must have understood that there is something which is imbalanced in the body. There is something, it's a kind of a problem when an individual loses his or her temper. When the individual not focus what he is doing, it will not be understood what exactly he has done or what he is doing or what will be the upcoming parameters or situation will happen if he or she is doing this. Got it? So it's very important for us to understand this concept, that what is the psychological disorder. It affects the person's emotion, thought process, and the way to lead or conduct a thing. So when there is an emotional imbalance, whenever there is a difficulty in the thought process, when an individual is not able to take decisions, when an individual is getting problem in what should I say, problem solving, remembering, making judgment, and thought process. I can tell that these kind of problems are psychological disorders, right? So when we are talking about the psychological disorders, so we must have understood the thing that's very, very important, right? And the thing that I'm telling right now is affective disorder, right? So when there is a term called the affective disorder, so what happened here? In affective disorder, the mood, it's a disorder of mood, right? So disorder of mood or feeling status, either short term or long term. So this is the kind, see, you must have seen people who are having disturbed with their mental abilities, sometime for the shorter period of time, sometime for the longer period of time. Got it? So what I want to say here, I would like to stretch here is a kind of mood swing, a kind of mental illness for a short period of time or for a long period of time. Got it? So mental illness. See, generally people, those who are mental, sometimes they are recognized people, sometimes they talk properly, sometimes they behave properly, rather than sometimes they are shows instrumental aggression, sometimes they are having aggression, that is the most violent, showing the potential, right? And sometimes that same people, that same individual shows a good kind of behavior. They having, he or she or any of the individual, those who are having some mental illness, sometimes he shows a bad conduct, it means bad behavior, aggressive behavior. Sometimes he or she is talking very nicely. Okay, it means this affective disorder is depends on mood or feeling, state of feeling. It is either for a short term or it is either for a long term. So this is what I am telling you, that this kind of problems can be for a short term, can be for a short period of time, and they maybe can for the long period of time. Got it? So here we need to understand that people having, see what is the myth here? Generally the myth comes is that we think that this people was fine on that day and now he again doing the same thing. So as what I told you, that cognitive disability people have a lot of myth. So one should have a deep knowledge of these all things because it's human nature, anything can be happened. Got it? So when we are talking about this mental health problems, so in the term of science we called it psychiatric illness. What we called it? We called it psychiatric illness. I hope you must have understood what I am saying, right? So here we need to understand that this cognitive disability is totally depends on the thought process. It affects the thought process. It leads to lot of hormonal as well as lot of changes in the mind and body, right? So let us come and talk about the personality disorder. As I told you that there are 3 types of personality, right? So personality, if someone wants a good kind of personality, they should be ocean. They should be ocean, right? So here the meaning of O is openness. Openness to experience any action. Openness to experience anything which comes in life. Right? Next is C, that is conscientiousness. Right? Continuous progression, continuous hard work, putting hard work. Next is C, that is E, that is extroversion. Be yourself an extroversion on a regular basis. Next is A, that is agreeable. Agreeable in good things, not in bad things. And for neurotism, it means your decision should be equal for everyone. Your decision should be good for everyone, and it should always equal with any time everyone. Right? So I would like to say here is impartial. Right? What I am telling you, your decision should be impartial. Next that we know is schizophrenia. So schizophrenia is a mental disorder characterized by the disturbance of thinking and belief. This is also again an important question of our board exam. This is common and history. Actually, this chapter is very important and it definitely comes in the examinations. It's very important to understand these organs, right? So here what we have understood, we started with the psychological disorders, which is the affective disorders, right? So psychological disorder, it affects the person's condition of thought process and emotions. Affective disorder. Affective disorders are based on mood, feeling, on either short term or long term. When we talk about the mental health impairments, so these mental health impairments are generally called psychiatric illness. What we call it psychiatric illness. Personality disorders defines a deep, inadequate pattern of behavior that affects your thought sufficient to lead a significant impairment in the day-to-day life. Those who have the kind of cognitive disability, they face different kind of problem in their daily life. Schizophrenia is a kind of mental disorder characterized by disturbance of thinking, mood, and belief. Now let us understand what are the causes of this cognitive disability. So when we are talking about the causes of disabilities, it means these are some reasons, these are some points on which this problem or illness based, why these things happen, what is the main causes. So as there are a lot of causes, like obesity is also the causes. Okay, so next is genetic problem. Okay, so when we are talking about genetic problems, it totally depends on the DNA. Okay, it may depends on the mutation. Okay, mutation is the shift in the pair of the chromosomes in alleles, right? So this problem may arise due to a genetic condition, right? So let's just give the two examples of the genetic condition like Down syndrome, right? Hemophilia would be an X syndrome, double X syndrome. So there are different kinds of genetic problems when we do cognitive disability, right? Now next is problem during pregnancy. So sometimes the fetal brain is not developed, sometimes deficiency of nutrients, sometimes the amniotic fluid, like the fluid which is present in the womb of a woman, of a mother, when the baby is inside the stomach, inside the embryo. So the amniotic fluid is less, sometimes malnutrition will take place. So these are some causes. Next is problem during childbirth. So sometimes the baby becomes extremely premature. Okay, he or she is not able to survive in the world. Like the gestation period is of 9 months, right? And if an individual is come in this world before that, then it will be a premature birth. But so now let us talk about the intellectual thing, that is the thinking process. Okay, so these totally what I want to say is cognitive disability is something when a person is facing problem while intellectual things, that is the behavior pattern, how to live, how to interact, and how to express the emotions. Person who having problem while learning or remembering or memory resulting. What? Memory resulting. Problem solving, right? He or she will not be able to solve some problems. It means judgmental problem also. So some problems or some illness, that is the intellectual problem, learning problem, memory resulting, problem solving, affect this whole process, remembering process, name process, and thought process. So these are some kind of parameters. These are the parameters which are affected when an individual is facing kind of problems, and these problems will lead an individual to a very severe condition sometime. Got it? So let's start and let us recapitulate what is the main thing to understand, what are the things we have done, right? So disability, which is of, what does it mean? It's an impairment. Right? Now this disability is of 3 types, as I told you. First, physical or mobility impairment. Second is sensory impairment. Third is cognitive. Got it? So these are 3 things that we need to keep in mind, and these are 3 most important factors where we keep our main focus. And this is the 3 marks question, and I have let you know the detail of this. Okay, dear students. So what we have understood here in this cognitive or learning disability, the first is physical. So physical, there is upper limb, lower limb, or manual dexterity. These are the problems. If we talk about sensory, so all the sense organs, there is problem related with eyes, problem related with hearing, problem related with the vision, etc. So these are some different kinds of problems, that is the sensory impairment stages, right? So I already told you any of the problem which is related with the sense organ, which affects the sense organ, are sensory impairment. All physical and mobility impairments are related problem with the upper limb, problem with the lower limb, or a manual dexterity, right? Then we talk about cognitive, so it's a affective disorder, personality disorder, Okay, when your thought process, memory resulting, remembering, right? Thought process, memory resulting, or memory resulting, thought process, remembering, right? Decision making, judgment, when your this kind of things, these parameters are not perfect, it means there is a locha, there is a problem. So it is, I hope it is clear now that this cognitive or learning disability is totally depends on the thought process, and these all things are remembered. And dear students, it's a 3 to 5 marks question. So keep learning these things should do properly, and you must go all the content properly, right? So let me read one thing and you listen it properly. See, the psychological disorders affect the person's emotion, thought process, and it also lead an individual to change in behavior. Got it? Affective disorder is a kind of disorder of mood when the feeling or state either sometimes it's for a long time or sometimes it's for shorter time. A mental health impairment is term used to describe person or people who having experienced psychiatric problems. Personality disorder is defined as the deeply inadequate pattern of behavior or thought of sufficient severity of causes sufficient impairment to day-to-day life. Got it? Schizophrenia, you know that it's a mental kind of disorder which is characterized by illness or a problem. Got it? Intellectual so disability is totally related with the developmental disabilities, appropriate the decision making, the memory resulting, the problem solving skills are not happen. If we talk about the genetic conditions, so these genetic conditions include Down syndrome, Fragile X syndrome. What is I called it? Fragile X syndrome. Problem during pregnancy are it's interfere the fetal brain development, include alcohol or use of drugs, malnutrition, sometimes certain infections. Got it? Problem during childbirth. So the childbirth problems are intellectual disabilities may result if the baby is deprived of oxygen during birth or born extremely premature. So these are some things that we need to keep in mind while dealing with a student or an individual or a neighbor who is facing some cognitive disability. Disability is not an inability of a person. If you have power of persistence, you can do anything that you want. So with this, I would like to thanks for the session. Take care. Bye-bye. We'll meet with the new topic. Take care.